Thanks for tuning in to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic called the Strife and End of American Black Overall Relations. Let me repeat that again. So the topic for today is the strife and end of American blacks, should I say, overall relations. Question mark, question mark. Is there a strife going on against American black men and women overall among themselves? And is this done on purpose? If so, then why? And is there an end goal or goals on this? Now, this is if there are personnel who believe that there is strife as well. See, the thing about it is, this is not about, my American black men and women overall, that it's better for them to pick one another than going to some various other groups or ethnicities. I said, look, this is beyond logical sense that many cultures, many ethnicities, etc., they overall pick from their own culture or cultures, right? With a percentage that's not gigantically of them picking maybe some other cultures, some other ethnicities. Now, with that being said, remember, overall, for people who don't know for some reason, but overall, American black males, black men, overall, they prefer their own American black women in relationships. And that's logical analysis, common sense, that the majority of American black males are in relations until the one when they select someone that they want to get with, they are in relations with the overallness amount of American black women. But unfortunately, the power of supremacy, the most awesome mental manipulation force that has ever existed, has got numbers of American black women thinking that, those American black males, they always trying to get with another woman from a different culture or ethnicity. That's telling white lies. Because I just relayed over beyond reality, the majority of American black males are overall in relationships. The ones when they are in relations, they are in relations with an American black woman. So you see the little white lies that's still being told to numbers of American black women, the ones that do not seem to understand that. Because see, supremacy, they don't care about the few percentage of American black women that ain't falling for it. Just like they don't care about, on the opposite side, they say, we know that numbers of the American black males out there, they know that there is higher numbers of them when some do get with another cultures, as some of them get you would call successful, whatever that's supposed to mean, in an external way within this country, that they'll get with some personnel within a predominant culture and or some other personnel from some other different cultures. Now, again, to each of their own of who a person loves or want to get with. Because it's hypocritical that some American black men will probably say as well, wait a minute now. So when they get with some personnel within a predominant culture, a woman within a predominant culture, and numbers of American black women overall, or numbers of them complain about, the American black men, when they get a little bit of resources or some kind of title or moving up in the corporate society or all this kind of stuff. Oh, they're always trying to go toward another woman from different culture. But you hear that little sneaky word, always, right? You know how silly that sounds, right? But this is the kind of stuff that's still going on. See, this is why I always say, no, well, yeah, I'm standing by what I say. 1,000% with infinity. The African ancestors, Native Black personnel overall only has about half a generation to one generation left before there's an overall complete destruction of any type of, well, kind of sort of, it might be a unification of some of the black American black personnel. Half a generation to one generation left. That is it. I stand by what I say. I stand by what I say with 1,000,000%. See, this thing with the before let me throw some out to you. There are some I like some of the topics of the shows I like to be able to relay over as an historical timepiece, right? As an historical timepiece, right? As an historical timepiece. Because if you don't sit there and put those things in a historical timepiece, unfortunately, see, supremacists know, they're like, they know that there is so much black pain going on within a higher number of African ancestors Native blacks. It's a lot of black pain going on. It's a lot. Right? And see, I don't want to go there right now on that. So let me just throw some out to you. You have, see, there is unfortunately such an extreme strife going on toward one another within the American blacks overall to each other. There's an extreme amount of that going on to one another. And so supremacists understands it already, right? They know that there is a strife going on between the American black man and black woman. And it is done not just on purpose, with maximum purpose. With maximum purpose. Because there are maximum type of results that they are going to get out of numbers of American black men and numbers of American black women to keep the strife going on among one another. But also this little sinisteristic, not synergistic, that's the constructive positive part, but the sinisteristic, the evil twin of synergistic. Sinisteristic within the feminism supremacy doctrine, which is the second most awesome mental manipulation force that has ever been created next to supremacy. See, the thing about it, what makes them so, there's all kinds of things that make them so sinisteristic, evil, with a demonic type of indoctrination that's infesting quite a numbers of American black women. Even though I just sit there and said numbers of them, you have some person that didn't even hear what I said. See, that's the greatness of supremacy, right? See, feminine supremacy. See, they are around, I would probably say around latter parts of 1960s to the early time frame parts of 1970s. Feminine supremacy was like, look, we can never allow any of that black pride stuff. We can never allow even numbers of black women that were still wanting an overall amount of black unification. See, the last great apexial time frame of black unification relating to the American blacks was in the 60s. And it kind of boosted up for half a second for around about the 80s or part of 90s. But there's no comparison to the 60s on that. That was a gigantic amount of the last greatness of the black unification, because you're talking about formal segregation was still going on in various parts in the 60s. Don't think for a second one going on in some kind of way, right? Could American blacks just go vote anywhere they want to go to in the 60s? I don't think so. You remember that little, well, for some cultures that don't know, and there are some people who do know, especially within numbers of personnel within the phenomenon, within the African Native blacks. That little atrocious segment in a time in the 60s called the Selma race riot that happened for what? Some personnel, blacks, that were just going across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, of just wanting to be treated equally with voting rights. And they get stampled by some numbers of bad seeds. Stampled. Horses running them all over with racist personnel. Right? And how many never even pay the price for that? No, how many of them never paid the justice price for that? Right? Right? Not talking about violence. I'm talking about paying the justice price, just as I just said. Right? Think about that. And where's all these different other women? Where's all these different numbers of Asian women? On the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Where's the number of these Hispanic women on the Edmund Pettus Bridge? Where's the number? I don't know why I'm even saying this, because it's so ridiculous, right? I'm getting to a point on that. Where's the number of border breaking illegal immigration numbers of women on the Edmund Pettus Bridge? Oh, I forgot. They wouldn't even been even talked about on that. So who were the personnel going across the Edmund Pettus Bridge? African Native blacks and African Native black women. Right? Overall, right? So you see that it was a long time ago that there was some type of black unification a lot more in those type of conditions in the 60s, mid 60s, which wasn't a long time ago. So it's interesting how supremacy, being very brilliant, the most awesome mental manipulation force that's ever existed, and feminine supremacy with their demonic selves, right? That sit there and use numbers of black women like nothing. They's using numbers of them with very few percentage exceptions. And to those American black women, some of them who's trying to sit there and still relay over constructiveness, keep doing your thing. And what's the sad part is about you have however numbers of American black women that don't like those type of numbers of black women who is trying to sit there and relay information to one another. Because however numbers of American black women don't want to hear anything from American black men overall, with a few exceptions. See, that's the power of brilliancy. But again, for the numbers of African Native black women that are y'all are being used. Are being used. I just gave a major example. Where was all these different type of women, predominant-based culture, walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama in the 60s? Nowhere to be really found. And the power of supremacy, with the true supremacy, with their master mental manipulation tactics, they'd be like, but there was some kind of women right before. See, man, because when you start allowing little white lies, they got you. Right? There would have been nothing but a small piece of numbers of personnel from the predominant-based culture that was trying to do something for numbers of African Native black, extremely small. Because if it was the overall amount, especially numbers of numbers of women within predominant culture, you don't think different laws and policies would have produced constructive results? Right? That's the purpose, right? Not to have that. And the thing about it, remember for the people who don't recall, or people who do recall some different kind of cultures or ethnicity, etc., who would probably listen to this, or whoever might listen to this in the future that may not have heard about this. That's fine, because I'll have these kind of things like this as for future timepiece purposes, because the overall amount of supremacy they also love with the mental manipulation tactics, right, to produce cultural amnesia toward millions of African ethnic blacks who can't stand talking anything about the past. And he said, wait a minute, you don't think the past is important, but you better not tell again some people to say the white man took their land, or some bad dictator did this to that personnel, or there's some kind of genocidal situation over here in that country, all this kind of stuff. Better not tell nobody that. So you see the sinisteristic type demonic of that, right? How they'll get millions of African ethnic blacks to think the past is some dinosaur time frame of, a couple of million years ago in some, time frame, right? Or some type of Jurassic time frame, or Triassic, or whatever you want to call it, time frame, right? Oh, they think it's some type of ice age time frame ago, past. The thing about it, there was this thing not too long ago. Again, for a person who remember this, and that's fine, but a person who will be listening to this, or hopefully maybe listen to someone in the near future, maybe 6 months from now, or 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? There was a major entity, I'm not going to say the name, that decided to give $10 billion in investment capital and $100 million in philanthropic capital to impact the lives of 1 million black women. Let me repeat this. A certain major financial entity relays that it is going to commit $10 billion in investment capital and $100 million in philanthropic capital to impact the lives of 1 million black women. It's launched in a partnership with black women-led organizations, which is a white lie. I'm going to throw this out to you in a second. This new initiative from a such and such big-time financial entity, 1 million black women, is the largest announcement of its kind in size at this moment, should I say. No telling how that's going to go, and scope, and will drive investment in housing, healthcare, access to capital, education, job creation, and workforce advancement, digital connectivity, financial health. Research from such and such major financial entity shows that reducing the earnings gap for black women has the potential to create 1.2 to 1.7 million U.S. jobs and increase the annual U.S. GDP by 300 to 450 billion in current dollars. Where did you see anything where it was talking about helping African ancestors, Native blacks in general? Where is it 1 million American blacks initiative by major entities like this? Crickets, right? Pin drops, silence in the forest, etc., right? Ain't that interesting? But nothing about, in general, 1 million, like, again, some type of American blacks initiative or something. Nope, because there is a continuous agenda to separate the American black woman overall from the American black males. And these demonic, sensationalistic, evil Supremacist people are brilliant. Do you realize what would happen if there was a company, a major entity that said 1 million black men and said, relayed over that they're going to do 100, what 10 billion investment capital, 100 million in philanthropic type of grants to 1 million black men? There would be outrage within numbers of American black women. Outrage. That's sexist. That's patriarchal. Even though you say, "Oh, okay, you want to play that game? Let's go look up certain type of high echelon personnel within that certain company or companies, or that said that they will do this for American black males." And then when you sit there and see some woman or women from within the predominant-based culture or some other culture, then you sit there and say, "Hey, some numbers of American black women." You say that's sexist or patriarchal, then how you sit there and explain that there was some numbers of women within the predominant-based culture and some other women? How do you explain that in those higher echelon executive positions and treasurers and certain type, I don't go on, I'm getting that, right? Certain type of leadership position. How do you explain that then? Then it'd be quietness, right? Because see, it's being programmed, unfortunately, unfortunately it's being programmed so deep down, especially within that late 60s, starting going around the early 1970s, to give some indoctrination to millions of African and Native blacks women to look upon the American black male as nothingness. Right? Even though, again, 60s, you still talking about in the 60s, there still was some type of former segregation scenario still going on. And certainly, remember the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Who was that for? Who do you think they was talking about mostly? That was talking about overall geared toward the American blacks, right? But again, it's like anything else, dilution factor, right? So what was going on just a decade before the 60s, right? Remember the Rosa Parks scenarios and things like that, right? Right? Sit in the back of the bus, right? Color sections in movie theaters, right? Couldn't get on the same bus as person within the predominant-based culture, right? American black folks had to go sit in the back of the bus. Couldn't stay at any hotel, the motel they want to stay at. Couldn't go to any kind of swimming pool they want to go to. And where's all these different other women from different other cultures? Where are they at? They were doing their own thing among their own cultures. And how many numbers of them had such insignificant numbers? They ain't worth even talking about. Right? So millions of African and Native black women are being used for the benefit of however other numbers of women within the predominant culture, however numbers of women within the Hispanic culture, however numbers of women within the Asian culture. I'm not talking about some of the good ones. And anybody play a little game, go jump into a piranha's pit. So I'm not one of the kind of person that can play that little silly game with on that. Right? It's infantile. Because that's logical analysis. Where are all these different other women at? On the Freedom Ride buses. Huh? What was that again? Silence in the forest? Where's all the conversation about that? Where's all these different kind of women for within the predominant culture? Again, numbers of women from the Asian culture, numbers of women from Hispanic culture. How about where are the numbers of women from illegal immigration border break-in personnel? People are doing their own thing. And again, in such insignificant numbers. But here we go in the 21st century. How many other personnel from different cultures, women, benefit off of black women? This situation, what I was reading about the $1 billion, et cetera, investment in $100 million for investment capital. $100 million in philanthropic support to advance racial equity and economic opportunity by investing in black women. Well, here we go again, white lie switchery, as usual. Because then you start looking at the different type of investment capital and philanthropic grants where people provide to the following organizations. I'm not going to read the names, But when you read some things about them, let me show you some white lies in here. But let me throw some other stuff out to you first. Yeah, they will receive this particular entity will receive a grant to support Black women-led community birth centers in providing access to new resources that ensure Black women's collective vitality, sustainability, and growth. We ain't gonna worry about American Black males. What the heck with them, right? We ain't gonna worry about vitality for American Black males, sustainability for American Black males, growth for American Black males. They said the heck with them, right? You said to do with birth center. Stop trying to play the white lie switchery. That's the irrelevant part on that. I'm just relaying to Steele. Okay, well, you know what? We're gonna sit there and support Black males because you know that there's so much Black pain going on. Well, beside with the Black woman, we're gonna do something for the Black males and relay some different things and try to help them out, see different things and provide also for their vitality. And this type of fatherhood and sustainability as Black males and help them out even more, right? In their growth. Nope. Another one was talking about how I don't think I'm gonna say is relating to buying some things, should I say, relating to Black women, should I say? And he talks about how technical assistance and grant funding to small Black women-owned businesses. Nothing for American Black males, right? Because the system don't care nothing about Black males. They want them extinct as much as possible. It's a different topic, a different show. They want them extinct as best as possible. And you got numbers of American Black women that are thinking, well, who do you think is going to be the protector in the future? Who do you think is going to be the protector of numbers of American Black women? Numbers of males within the Badana-based culture who do not care anything about many American Black women. They do not overall care. What, you're going to get numbers of Asian men, numbers of Hispanic males, what, border breaking illegal immigration males? You think they don't care about Black women overall either? This stuff is so ridiculously obvious. Obviously not. So you see stuff like this sinisteristic type of stuff going on. But what you said, what did I do? We talking about earlier. Okay, I'm just gonna say this other entity. It says related to they will receive a grant to fund a certain initiative to fill systemic funding gap faced by nonprofits led by women of color. What does that mean, women of color? That can be numbers of Asian women. That can be numbers of Hispanic women. These are numbers of women, just different little areas. So you see the white lie switcher that numbers of American Black women don't see they're being used. I don't say that. I don't see it. I don't see it. Another one's talking about will provide Black mothers living in extreme poverty with $1,000 monthly stipend to help lift them out of poverty. What about helping numbers of Black males that stay in poverty? They do not care anything about the American Black males overall. This society overall wants more Black pain. Stuff is so obvious. It's just so obvious on this. It's so obvious. And so the thing about it is that numbers of other personnel from no Pacific culture, other cultures, many of them don't care about anything about American Black women. What did I just relate earlier? The predominant, that who is in relations with the majority of American Black women? Black men. But supremacy has gotten numbers of American Black women to think that's not true. And then on the opposite side, got numbers of American Black males that have so much Black pain among numbers of American Black men. And how many numbers of American Black men look down upon other numbers of Black men that may not be on a higher echelon of social or economics or things like that. But what it boils down to is, so what? Because that means you still have no power. Because then how can you explain however numbers of American black males by bad seeds that their life has been taken, where you think it was just some poor, lowly type of black male in poverty in the ghetto, that lives have been taken? Hmm? How many numbers of American black males in mid-level positions and businesses and high hierarchical positions in companies? How many of them have been reminded? How many of them have very nice cars? Hmm? How many of them have been driving expensive cars and still get reminded? How many? Because it doesn't matter how much money numbers of American black males make. It's still a minuscule in a supremacist system. They don't care about how much money some small numbers of American black males make. That's irrelevant to them. They say it's about power. And they say they say 99.8% of, they say numbers of American black males would never have no power. Never will have power. So the thing about it is that it's just an interesting situation how when you sit there and see the destruction going on, heading even more toward the American black men and black women overall, it is a extreme shameness that this stuff is not overall being seen with clear eyes on this. It is a sad thing on this part. It truly is, right? And so the thing about it is, um, this this strife that's going on toward um, the strife that's going, should I say, within uh, the overall of the American black culture is destructive. It's destructive. Blaming going on both sides. Blaming going on both sides. And see again, feminism supremacy, the next second most awesome mental manipulation force has ever existed. So on the opposite side, the American black male again is so beyond endangered. Excuse me. Again, I'm not going to that topic on this show, but the American black male is going toward endangerment. Going toward endangerment. And again, the supremacists will be using other different personnel from within other different cultures to bring even more finishing moves upon the American blacks. It's going to happen. Again, the American blacks, African ancestors, Native blacks only have half a generation to one generation left. Half a generation to one generation left. That is it. Doesn't matter that somebody within American black culture disagrees or says, oh, well, it's irrelevant to me. Because there are some numbers of African ancestors, Native black men and women, some that do understand where I'm coming from on that. Because there's too many internal problems that's been allowed to fester itself within the culture. So then the strife and the end of American black overall relations will happen. Said again, the strife and end of American black relations is happening and will be done. Half a generation, one generation left. Remember the thing for people who don't recall, because again, this is historical timepiece, because again, supremacy, the most awesome mental manipulation force that's ever existed, right? Again, they know that millions and millions and millions of American blacks overall have cultural amnesia eventually. Remember the thing with the Cuba, right? Hip hop icon legend, where he's talking about doing a contract for Black America, right? keywords, right? Black America, which includes what black men and black women. Unfortunately, that would be sell-offs as well. But still the whole point. Not perfection on that, right? But still the contract for Black America, right? Prior to elections, to try to get some type of politicalness and economics, et cetera, for Black Americas. And about time it's been truly overdue. When you got personnel that has anti-Asian already, bill whatever already passed specifically for Asian, right? However number of things for turn opt-out categories, right? However many things, you say, they say, oh, this person is anti-Hispanic. What are that supposed to mean? Because they're Afro-Hispanics. Who are they talking about, right? Right? And you got however numbers when they say, oh, women, and most people don't ask which women, right? See, it's all little white lie switchery type of tactics that are very disgusting, but it's also brilliancy, right? So again, unfortunately, that numbers of millions of African ethnic Native blacks do not understand. It's like a tidal wave that's heading toward the direction, and only but a minutinous amount of American blacks will survive. Black pain is real. And they're using all types of tactics. Because it's got to be sickening when you got personnel, however ones within black political figures, however numbers of them, that will jump up and down for specifically the anti-Asian bill, but don't sit there and demand anything for specifically black folks. That's sickening, right? And other cultures sit back and laugh. Ain't no darn way in a darn dung beetle's tail that another culture, political situations are going to sit there and help another culture out first. That is sickness. And supremacists crack up every time they sit there and see numbers of political black person doing things like this related to helping other people cultures out. How many other personnel, black political person, however numbers of personnel that jump up and down about, you got to help the kids for illegal immigration personnel? How many of them? And won't even sit there and tackle the extreme poverty or extreme black pain that's going on toward numbers of black kids in various type of cities, right? You look at the top 10 dangerous cities, and who do you think is going to be number of those cities on top? Who do you think the predominant base demographics is going to be? But nothing is overall wants to be done to stop this black plight going on. Whereas again, numbers of African and Native black women don't understand. Black pain is American black women pain as well. Remember the thing with the Ice Cube, or the Cube thing, where it's talking about the plight, the contract with Black America. And you had various numbers of women on that panel, and however numbers of women within that, black women within that panel, that was going off on Cube. Well, what about black women? And it's like, it says contract for Black America. That means black men and black women. And numbers of black women, whatever numbers of black women on the panel, still couldn't get that through their skull. How it sounds. Other cultures who looked at this nonsense, and other people who have not listened to that, whether the Cube panel discussion with the various type of black women. And for most people who look at stuff like that, if you haven't looked at that and you decide to do that, and you look at that stuff, if you're from another culture, even among some personnel within the American black culture who may have not seen that yet, because some of the ones who have seen that saw the dastardliness, the evilness of having some numbers of black women going off on this iconic, legendary Cube, right? About what are you going to do for black women? When I just sit there and read you earlier, for the ones who, again, did not hear about it, and for the ones who have read about it, but may not have heard some of the other things I was reading about that. Right? They're gonna specifically do something for black women? Where's all those saying those black women saying to that big gigantic financial entity, hey, we're gonna do we need to do something for black males in general. We need to do something for black folks in general. Nope. So again, I don't want to make this uh, topic too long. Just saying the strife and end of American blacks overall relations is happening, and it will continue to happen. And the African ancestors, Native blacks, only have half a generation to one generation left. And unfortunate numbers of African ancestors, Native black men, and unfortunate numbers of African ancestors, Native black women do not understand what is heading toward the direction on the overall way. When you got so many personnel that can't stand the American black men, American black women, and how many personnel from no Pacific cultures, alternative lifestyle category, numbers of ethnicities, numbers of them, however within, can't stand American black folks, will use them, attach themselves to the plight of black pain, and have the nerve to sit there and try to make it seem like that they are people of color, minorities. Let me read you something, because I cannot say this enough, from a thing called White Man's Bible. The N word or N word, we use the term N word deliberately in this book and recommend its usage in general conversation, as we have stated in a previous chapter. The second dumbest creature on the face of the earth is one who can't or won't recognize his enemies, and the dumbest of all is that creature which will actively collaborate with his enemies for the destruction of his own race. I want you to think about that. For numbers of ones within the African and Native blacks. It's called the White Man's Bible, 1981. When they was talking about N-word or N-word, we use the term N-word, and they say that the second dumbest creature on the face of the earth is one who can't or won't recognize his enemies, and the dumbest of all his creature which will actively collaborate with his enemies. So let me preach this again. The second dumbest creature on the face of the earth is one who can't or won't recognize his enemies, and the dumbest of all is that creature which will actively collaborate with his enemies for the destruction of his own race. Who do you think he was talking about? Numbers of Hispanic personnel? Who do you think he was talking about? Numbers of Asian personnel? Who do you think he's talking about? Border breaker legal immigration personnel? You think he's talking using that term of endearment, N-word, for them? See again, feminism supremacy. The second most also mental manipulation force on this planet has got millions of African and Native black women right where feminism supremacy wanted them, using their own agenda. How many African and Native black women have been racially minded by numbers of women within the Padang-based culture? How many? Or some within the Asian culture who have shown numbers of African and Native black women disrespect? How about our numbers of Hispanic personnel have shown numbers of African and Native black women? And most of the time, again, that stuff is not brought up, especially like I don't want to go there. That's another stuff about racial pay gap situations. What some sinisteristic type of nonsense, because most of the time it's not talked about. Do African and Native black women, I don't go there. Is there equality among businesses and CEOs and treasurer positions, COO positions, CEO, CFO positions, et cetera, executive positions, board leadership positions, venture capitalist positions? Is there equity among American black women? Numbers of women from Padang-based culture, numbers of Hispanic women, numbers of women Asian women? Is there some kind of equity among all of them? Oh, I say all, I'm talking about among different kind of women. Is there the American black woman? Does she have equality in those different areas among those different other women? So why is it that numbers of African and Native black women still don't quite get the concept that they are being used overall? And yes, there are sellout numbers of black women who can't stand other black women. They can't. Just like there's numbers of African and Native black males who can't stand numbers of African and Native black males who can't stand them. Got number of sellouts within that. That's why I have to relate. It's too many problems. There's too many problems to be corrected. And to get no reparations. And to get no reparations. Well, however numbers of Native personnel, who we want to call Native personnel, that includes what? Women. Get reparations. However numbers of those tribes get reparations. All right. Et cetera, laws or policies for Asian personnel, right? Et cetera, about, well, you say this, oh, that's anti-Hispanic, even though it's Afro-Hispanics. Do you see some border breaking, illegal immigration? How many numbers of the women, how many numbers of the border breaking, illegal immigration women sit back and laugh? Oh, we're trying to escape from violence. We're trying to escape and try to do the jobs over in the U.S. because we don't have any jobs. Whose problem is that? That's a problem of people that look like that personnel. But most people don't want to bring that up. Just like the thing about the $450,000, some relating to the current administration that insulted numbers of African estimated blacks. That was just an insult to even have even conversation or even thought pattern about basically giving them reparation because some of them were separated at the border from the children. But every day numbers of black youth are separate from their families for whatever the reasons of different things going on. Instead of find ways to find resources to help them with numbers of black youth pain and other things to help a lot of the black families get some things situated themselves. Nope. PC, for me, this stuff is very obvious. To me, it's very obvious on this. There is a dastardly type of mental manipulation tactic or tactics that's happening toward the American black men and black women overall to keep the strife and eventually end the American black relations overall. And overall it is going to happen in half a generation to one generation. That is it. So I hope that numbers of African and Native blacks can explain that to future youth on why is it that different other cultures and ethnicities and alternative lifestyle categories, numbers of them in each of those different categories have even more showing, will even more show disdain for American black men and American black women. So I hope numbers of African and Native black men and women will be ready to explain why they did not do anything overall to sit there and demand not just, well, we got to do something. Nope. To get people to say, look, you don't get in the office unless you get this for us, Pacific black folks. And how dare a person that can be black political personnel overall and not do anything for their own people while other different personnel do for their people first. Half a generation, one generation left for the American black relations and overall black culture overall. The only thing that's going to be surviving is but a very small amount of cultural black survivors. It's the way it's going to have to be. Because in closing, this is just like the black culture overall, even though that has some of the most historical powerhouse, historical achievements in history in the country that no other cultures or turned lifestyle categories can compare. There's no comparison. And look what happened. Because again, if you do not sit there and make sure that those achievements are forefront among the culture, if the liability of black pain more kind of music goes on, the only thing that does is infiltrate the minds of a lot of black youth and numbers of black men and numbers of black women. That's why you don't have that kind of love music anymore. That's why you don't have numbers of black men singing that those type of love ballads, and numbers of American black women singing those love ballads about black males or just black relationships in general that many other cultures did enjoy as well. That's why people don't want to hear anything about, or make sure not to sit there and show those black achievements. No, they don't want to hear that. So the system definitely wants more American black women to show even more disrespect to their black men. And for more black men to say to heck with them, to heck with the other many American black women, to heck with them, they just go to another culture. And you best believe, however many other women from different cultures on various parts of this globe, that they want to get with numbers of American black men. And American black women better understand it's heading that direction even more. It's heading that direction even more. And then who is going to be the protector for millions of African ancestors, Native black women? Just saying. And numbers of African ancestors, Native black men need to also even more call out numbers of sellout numbers of black males as well. But overall, there still would be more strife, and it will be end of American black overall relations, because it's too far gone and it was done by purpose. So the only thing that can be hopefully done is to have a few percentage of cultural survivors within the black culture. Thank you for tuning in to the CP show, or to the real CP show. Thank you.